The twin suns were high above the alien city when Ethan walked through the crowded street market. The air was thick with the smell of roasted meat, hot oil, and strange spices that made his nose burn. Voices of hundreds of traders filled the air, calling out their prices in different alien languages. The sound of metal coins, engines, and alien laughter mixed together in a noisy rhythm that never stopped. Ethan came here for one reason. He needed meat for dinner. Life on this alien planet was not easy, but after working long shifts repairing cargo ships, he liked cooking his own food. He moved through the stalls, ignoring the shouts of the sellers trying to pull him in. "Fresh beast liver." "Only 3 credits," shouted one. Another yelled, "Human discount today." He smiled politely and kept walking. The bright signs flashed in strange colors above his head, and alien creatures brushed past him with rough skin and glowing eyes. Some looked curious at the human walking among them. Others looked away in disgust. Humans were still new to this planet, and many locals didn't like them much. But Ethan had learned to ignore the stares. He stopped in front of a butcher's stall. Behind the counter, a 4-armed alien was cutting red meat with fast, precise movements. "You want meat?" the butcher asked in a heavy voice. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Something for stew." The butcher nodded and reached for a slab of glowing blue flesh. As Ethan was about to pay, a soft sound caught his attention. It was not the sound of bargaining or shouting. It was a quiet voice, trembling, almost begging. He turned his head slightly and saw something behind the next stall. A small metal cage stood in the corner, half covered by a cloth. Inside, someone was sitting. No, someone was kneeling. It was a woman. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, glowing faintly under the sunlight. Her hair, silver white, fell over her shoulders in tangled waves. She was wearing a torn gray dress and a metal collar around her neck. Her eyes were large and golden, but they looked tired, as if the light inside them was fading. The sign above the cage said, "Widowed servant, cheap." Ethan's chest tightened. He stepped closer without thinking. The crowd around the stall laughed and pointed. Who would buy a widow? One alien mocked. "She's cursed. Her husband died, her clan disowned her." Another added, "She's not even good for work anymore." The seller, a tall alien with green scales, shouted, "One more chance. Nobody wants her? She eats little, works hard, quiet as stone. Half price." Ethan froze. He came here for meat, not people. But when he looked at her, she lifted her head and met his eyes. For a second, everything around him went silent. Her expression was not begging anymore. It was proud, strong, even though she was trembling. There was something in her gaze that told him she still had hope, even after everything. "Hey, human," the seller barked. "You want meat or you want this useless woman? Make up your mind." The crowd laughed again. Ethan looked at the butcher's counter, then back at the cage. He took a deep breath. "How much?" he asked quietly. The seller blinked. "You serious?" "I asked how much." Ethan repeated, louder this time. The crowd went quiet for a moment, surprised. The seller smirked. "For you, human, special price. 200 credits. Take her and she's your problem." Ethan didn't argue. He took out his payment chip and placed it on the table. The seller grinned, unlocked the cage, and pushed the woman out roughly. She stumbled but caught herself before falling. "Congratulations," the seller said mockingly. "You just bought a widow." The crowd burst into laughter again as Ethan helped the woman stand. She looked confused, her golden eyes wide with disbelief. "You bought me?" she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. "You don't belong in a cage." The crowd lost interest and moved on, but Ethan felt the weight of their stares on his back as he guided her through the market. She walked carefully beside him, keeping her head low. The metal collar around her neck glowed faintly with a red light. As they passed through the narrow alleys, Ethan noticed how silent she was. She didn't ask where they were going, didn't thank him, didn't speak at all. She only followed. When they reached the edge of the market, he stopped. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated before answering. "Lariah." Her voice was soft, almost musical, but filled with fear. Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm Ethan, you're safe now." Lariah looked at him, uncertain. "Safe?" She repeated the word like she didn't believe it. "Yes," he said. "No one will hurt you." But deep inside, Ethan wasn't sure if that was true. He could feel the strange looks from behind, and he knew what the alien laws said about ownership and property. He didn't buy freedom today, he bought trouble. As they walked home, the suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. The city lights flickered on, reflecting in Lyraya's golden eyes. She looked at the streets as if seeing them for the first time. Ethan realized that her world had changed completely, and so had his. That night, as they reached his small house on the edge of the district, Ethan opened the door and let her in. The room was quiet and warm, filled with the smell of cooked food and metal tools. She stood at the entrance, unsure if she was allowed to move. Ethan turned to her and said gently, "You can rest here." She nodded, stepping inside slowly. For the first time since he saw her, she looked up at the ceiling instead of the floor. Her eyes softened. Ethan didn't know it yet, but saving her from that cage was only the beginning. The simple trip to buy meat had turned into something far bigger, something that would test his courage, his heart, and everything he believed about being human. The next morning, the house was quiet. Ethan woke to the smell of something cooking in the kitchen. He stepped out of his room and saw Lyraya standing by the stove, moving carefully as if every sound might break something. The gray dress she wore had been washed, still damp at the edges. Her silver hair fell over her shoulders as she stirred the pot with slow, gentle movements. Ethan leaned against the doorway and watched her for a moment. The way she moved was graceful but tense, like someone who was used to being watched and judged. She noticed him and froze, lowering her head quickly. "I made food," she said softly. "To repay." He smiled faintly. "You don't have to repay me. You're not my servant." Her hands trembled slightly. "Then why did you buy me?" The question hung in the air. Ethan didn't have an easy answer. He looked at her and said, "Because no one else should own you." Lyraya turned her head away, hiding the confusion in her eyes. For her, such words were strange. In her world, kindness always had a price. She placed the bowl of soup on the table and stepped back, waiting for permission to leave. "Sit," Ethan said. "Eat with me." She hesitated, looking at the chair like it was forbidden. Slowly, she sat down. They ate in silence. The soup was simple but good. He could tell she had cooked with care, though she had little to work with. Every now and then she glanced at him, her golden eyes full of questions she didn't ask. After breakfast, Ethan went outside to check the power lines on his small workshop. From the corner of his eye, he saw Lyraya cleaning the floor, the table, even the tools, working without rest. When he tried to stop her, she shook her head. "I must earn my place," she said quietly. Ethan sighed. "You don't need to earn it. You're free now." The word free made her stop. She turned slowly, her voice shaking. Free means nothing when the mark still burns. She raised her wrist, showing the faint red light under her skin. A circular symbol pulsed there, the mark of ownership. Ethan frowned. "What is that?" Lyraya looked down. "It belonged to my husband's clan. When he died, they kept my mark alive. It tells them I still exist, still belong to their house. I cannot remove it." "No one can." Ethan stepped closer, examining the mark. It looked like it was alive, moving faintly under her skin. "Does it hurt?" he asked. "Only when they call," she said quietly. "If they wish, they can make it burn. It reminds me that I am not truly mine." Ethan clenched his fists. "That's wrong," she gave a sad smile. "It is the law. A widow belongs to her husband's clan until she is bought again or erased." He shook his head, anger rising inside him. No law should let anyone own another person. She looked at him with a strange expression, as if she didn't understand what he meant. On her planet, freedom was only a story told to children. That night, when Ethan sat working on a broken circuit, he saw Lyraya standing by the window, staring at the stars. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of pain. He put down his tools and asked softly, "Do you miss your home?" She didn't answer right away. "Home is not a place," she said finally. "It is people, and mine are gone." Her words stayed in his mind long after she went to her room. He couldn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about the cage, about her trembling hands, about the red light on her wrist that refused to fade. The next morning, he woke early and found her sitting outside, watching the sunrise. "Do you ever think about leaving?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Every day. But where would I go? The mark follows me. It tells them where I am." Ethan sat beside her. "Then we'll find a way to remove it." She looked at him, surprised. "No one can." "Maybe no one tried hard enough," he said. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, for the first time since he met her, a tiny smile appeared on her face. It was small, fragile, but real. "You are strange, human," she whispered. "Maybe," he said with a smile. But I don't like seeing good people suffer. Lyria looked at the horizon, the light of the suns reflecting in her golden eyes. For the first time she felt something she thought was lost forever. Hope. But deep inside she also knew that hope on this planet was dangerous. The mark on her wrist began to glow faintly, as if warning her that her past was not done with her yet. And far away, in the city's upper district, someone saw that same glow appear on a monitor. A voice hissed, "The widow has been claimed again. Find her." The silence of freedom was about to end. The night air outside Ethan's house was heavy and still. Inside, Lyria sat near the window, her wrist glowing faintly under the dim light. The mark pulsed like a heartbeat, bright red for a moment, then fading again. She pressed her fingers over it, but the light refused to die. Ethan noticed it from his workbench. "It's glowing again," he said quietly. "Does it hurt?" Lyria shook her head, though her eyes told another story. "It always hurts when they remember I exist." He stood and walked closer. "You mean someone's watching you?" "Yes," she whispered. "The clan keeps their widows marked. When a new master buys one, the mark sends a signal. They will come. They always come." Ethan frowned. "Then they'll find you here." Lyria nodded slowly. "They'll come to take me back. To erase you for breaking their law." Ethan clenched his jaw. "They'll have to go through me first." She looked up, startled by the quiet strength in his voice. "You don't understand, human. You cannot fight them. Their law is older than your species." He met her eyes. "Then maybe it's time someone broke it." For the first time, she didn't argue. She just looked at him as if trying to understand what kind of man would speak like that. The mark flared brighter, burning against her skin. Lyria gasped and fell to her knees. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. The smell of ozone filled the room as the red light spread across her arm. "What's happening?" he asked. "They're calling me," she said through clenched teeth. "They know I've been sold. They want me to return. If I resist, the mark will destroy me." Ethan placed his hand over hers, feeling the heat of the mark. "There has to be a way to stop it." "There isn't," she said. "Not without removing it completely." He looked around the room, scanning his tools. "Then we'll remove it." Lyria's eyes widened. "It's forbidden. If you try, the energy backlash could kill us both." Ethan ignored her warning. He picked up a scanning tool and switched it on. The blue light swept over her wrist, showing lines of alien script under her skin. "It's not magic," he muttered. "It's technology." Lyria winced as the scanner beeped. "It's both," she whispered. "The mark binds my life to the clan's network. If it's cut wrong, it will take my heart with it." Ethan hesitated, then turned off the tool. He didn't want to risk her life, but he couldn't let her suffer either. "Listen," he said, "we'll find someone who knows how to break it safely. There has to be someone who hates their system as much as I do." Lyria's breathing slowed. She looked at him with something close to wonder. "You would do that? For me?" Ethan nodded. "I didn't buy you to let you die in my home. I bought you because no one else would help." She lowered her gaze, voice trembling. "You speak like freedom is simple." He smiled faintly. "It should be." Outside, the wind picked up. A drone passed over the rooftops, its red light sweeping through the alleys. Lyria froze. "They're close," she said. Ethan grabbed a heavy cloak from the wall and handed it to her. "Put this on. We're leaving. Where will we go?" "Somewhere they won't find you," he said firmly. "There's a mechanics quarter near the docks. Old tunnels under the landing bays." "We can hide there?" Lyria hesitated. "If they catch you helping me, they'll execute you." He gave a half smile. "I've been close to death before. This won't be my first risk." She stared at him for a moment, then wrapped the cloak around her shoulders. Together they stepped out into the cold streets. The market from yesterday was empty now. The stalls closed, the neon lights flickering like dying stars. As they moved through the shadows, Lyria whispered, "You could have left me there. Why didn't you?" Ethan didn't answer right away. The wind carried the faint hum of drones searching overhead. Finally, he said, "Because someone once saved me when I was worth nothing. I owe the world a debt, and I'm paying it forward." Lyria looked at him, the faintest warmth rising in her chest. For the first time in years, she wasn't walking alone. But far above the city, in a floating fortress of glass and metal, a figure in ceremonial armor watched her glowing mark on a holographic map. "She's moving," the alien lord said coldly. "Send the enforcers." Bring back what belongs to us. Down below, Lariah shivered as if she felt those words echo through the night. Ethan didn't know it yet, but saving her had just made him an enemy of one of the most powerful clans on the planet. The hunt had begun. The city never truly slept. Even at night, the lights from the towers painted the streets in pale blue and gold. Ethan and Lariah moved through the shadows, keeping to narrow paths where no one asked questions. The sound of distant patrol drones echoed through the alleys. Every few minutes, Lariah would stop and glance behind them, her hand resting on her wrist where the mark had begun to pulse again. They reached an abandoned district near the docks. Rusted ships were stacked like skeletons, their hulls cracked and forgotten. Ethan guided her into one of the empty cargo bays and shut the metal door behind them. It was dark and cold inside, but at least it was quiet. "You can rest here for now," he said. Lariah sat on the floor, pulling the cloak tighter around her shoulders. Her face was pale, her breathing slow. "They're getting closer," she said softly. "I can feel it." The mark listens to their call. Ethan crouched beside her. "Then we'll stay hidden until I figure something out." She looked at him, uncertain. "You don't understand who they are. The enforcers of my clan don't stop. Once the mark is triggered, they follow it until it dies or returns." Ethan met her gaze. "Then we'll make sure it doesn't die." Hours passed. The night grew colder. Ethan checked the doors again, then sat near the faint light coming through a broken vent. Lariah was staring at her wrist, whispering words he didn't understand. Her voice was soft, almost prayer-like, and it sent a chill through him. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air. The floor vibrated slightly. Ethan's head snapped up. "What's that?" Lariah's eyes widened. "They found us." Before Ethan could move, the metal doors exploded inward. Blinding light flooded the room, followed by tall figures in black armor. Their helmets glowed red, and each carried a plasma staff marked with the same symbol as Lariah's wrist. "Return the property," one of them said in a deep, distorted voice. Ethan stepped in front of her without thinking. "She's not your property." The enforcer tilted his head slightly, almost curious. "The mark says otherwise. Move, human. This does not concern you." "It concerns me now," Ethan said firmly. The room fell silent for a heartbeat, then chaos erupted. One enforcer swung his staff at Ethan, who ducked and tackled him into a pile of metal crates. Sparks flew as another fired a bolt of energy that burned through the wall. Lariah screamed for Ethan to stop, but he didn't listen. He grabbed a broken pipe and blocked another strike. The weapon vibrated in his hands, the heat searing his palms, but he held on. He slammed it into the enforcer's chest, sending the armored figure crashing backward. One of the enforcers raised his weapon toward Lariah. "Deactivate," he commanded. The mark on her wrist blazed with light. She cried out and fell to her knees, clutching her arm in pain. Ethan saw her collapse and charged forward. He tackled the attacker, grabbing his staff and slamming it against the control unit on the enforcer's arm. The device sparked violently and shut down. Lariah gasped as the burning faded. The remaining enforcers regrouped, their weapons raised. Ethan stood between them and Lariah, breathing hard, his shirt torn and blood on his lip. "You'll have to kill me first," he said. The lead enforcer pointed his weapon at him. "That can be arranged." Before he could fire, Lariah suddenly stood. Her golden eyes glowed fiercely, brighter than before. She raised her hand and shouted a phrase in her native tongue. The air shimmered and a wave of blue light burst outward. The enforcers staggered, their armor flickering as their control systems overloaded. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "What did you do?" Her voice trembled. "Something forbidden. I used the link against them, but it won't hold for long." They ran, slipping through the broken side door as the enforcers struggled to recover. Alarms echoed through the district, red lights flashing above the rooftops. They didn't stop running until they reached the lower tunnels beneath the docks. Lariah leaned against the wall, shaking. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us." She looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "No, I just delayed them. They'll come again. They never stop until the mark is gone." Ethan looked at her wrist, still faintly glowing. "Then we'll find a way to destroy it. No matter what it takes," she smiled weakly. "You are a strange man, Ethan." He smiled back. "I've been called worse." Above them, the enforcers regrouped, their commander watching the flickering signal on his wrist display. "She's using forbidden power," he said coldly. "That human has no idea what he's dealing with. Next time we bring her back alive and we erase him. The hunt wasn't over. It had just begun." and both Ethan and Larea were now marked by something far deeper than the law, by fate itself. The tunnels beneath the city were dark, endless and cold. Pipes dripped water from above, and the air smelled of metal and rust. Ethan moved first, guiding Larea through the narrow passages. Their footsteps echoed softly, mixed with the distant hum of machinery. Somewhere above, patrol drones buzzed, searching for them. They finally stopped near a flickering sign that read, Zone D, Maintenance Outpost. Ethan knocked 3 times on the old door. A small hatch slid open, revealing a single yellow eye. "Who's there?" a rough voice asked. "An old friend," Ethan replied quietly. The door creaked open and a short, gray-skinned alien stepped out. His name was Rake, a mechanic Ethan had once worked with. His clothes were stained with grease and his smile was crooked. "Ethan, you crazy human. You disappear for months and now you show up with a marked widow. Are you trying to die young?" Ethan gave a tired smile. "Need a place to hide, just for a while." Rake sighed but waved them inside. The small room was filled with broken machines, metal scraps, and tools. Sparks flew from a half-repaired drone on the table. Larea looked around carefully, staying close to Ethan. Rake pointed at her wrist. "That marks trouble. You know they track those, right?" "I know," Ethan said. "We need to disable it." Rake whistled low. "Disable it? That's not easy, even for me. The clans use blood-coated tech. You break it wrong, it kills the host." Laraya's voice was soft. "Then you understand why we need help." Rake studied her for a long moment. "You really trust him, don't you?" She nodded without hesitation. "He's the first one who saw me as more than property." Rake blinked, then looked at Ethan. "You've got yourself a big mess, my friend." He rubbed his chin and added, "But I'll see what I can do." While Rake worked on his tools, Ethan and Larea sat on an old bench. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It felt like peace, fragile, but real. Ethan glanced at her, noticing the soft light of the lamp reflecting in her golden eyes. "You should rest," he said. She shook her head. "I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see them." "The enforcers?" She nodded slowly. "When I was taken after my husband's death, they kept me in a cell for days. They told me I was property now, a ghost of a dead man. They made me wear this mark to remind me I belonged to no one but their clan." Ethan's hands tightened into fists. "No one deserves that." Her voice softened. "On my world, we are taught that duty is stronger than love. I obeyed until I had nothing left. When you bought me, I thought you would be the same, but you're not." He looked at her surprised. "I just did what felt right." "That is why it's strange," she said quietly. "Kindness is rare among the stars." Before he could answer, Rake called out, "I found something." The mark signal runs through a sublayer of her nervous system. It's not just tech. It's bonded to her life pattern. Larea looked worried. "Can it be removed?" Rake shrugged. "Maybe. There's an old priest in the lower quarters who used to work on genetic bindings. He knows the old rituals mixed with science, but he's hard to find and even harder to trust." Ethan stood. "Then tell me where to start." Rake handed him a small holographic map. "You'll need to cross the underbridge. Dangerous place, full of smugglers and watchers. If they catch you, they'll sell you to the same clan you're running from." Ethan took the map and nodded. "We'll manage." Rake sighed. "You always do, somehow." He glanced at Larea. "Keep her alive, human. She's worth more than you know." They left the workshop before dawn. The city above was waking, lights turning on one by one. Larea walked beside Ethan, the mark still faintly glowing under her sleeve. "Do you really think this priest can free me?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Ethan replied, "but I'll never stop trying." She looked at him, her expression softening. "You speak like someone who's lost too much." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's why I don't want to lose again." They reached the bridge just as the suns began to rise, bathing the world in a soft orange glow. From the distance, sirens wailed, The enforcers were searching again. But for the first time, Lariah didn't feel only fear. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Trust. As they disappeared into the morning light, a message flashed. Across the enforcers' command screens high above the city, the Widow's signal has gone dark. Possible interference detected. Authorize planetary scan. The chase was far from over, but deep in her heart, Lariah began to believe that freedom might finally be more than a dream. The lower quarters of the city were unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The streets were narrow and filled with mist that glowed faintly under the neon lights. Strange symbols were carved on the walls, and the air carried the scent of incense and oil. People moved quietly, wrapped in cloaks, their faces hidden. This was the place where laws meant nothing, and secrets lived longer than kings. Lariah walked beside him, her steps slow but steady. The mark on her wrist was dim now, but every few minutes it flickered like a heartbeat. She knew the clan was searching. The silence between her and Ethan said everything. They were running out of time. They stopped before a small stone temple buried beneath the ruins of an old tower. Candles burned along the entrance, their blue flames motionless in the still air. Ethan looked up at the cracked sign above the door. "This is it?" he asked. Lariah nodded. "The one who lives here was once a priest of my people. He broke his vows when he tried to free the marked. The clans call him a traitor. Others call him a savior." Ethan pushed open the door. Inside, the light was dim and warm. Shelves were lined with old relics, crystals, and metal pieces humming softly. An old alien sat cross-legged in the center of the room, his skin faded to a pale gray, his eyes glowing faintly white. "I felt your approach," the priest said, his voice calm and deep. "The mark burns bright with conflict." Lariah bowed her head. "Master Terran," she said softly, "I seek freedom." The old priest's gaze moved to Ethan. "And you bring a human. Few would risk their life for one of us." "Why?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Because no one should live in chains." The priest studied him for a long moment. "You speak with conviction, but freeing her will come at a cost. The ritual of severance is forbidden. It requires a bond stronger than the mark itself. A life bond." Lariah frowned. "You mean?" "Yes," the priest said. "To destroy her link to the clan, she must be linked to another. If he chooses to take her burden, their lives will become one. If she dies, he dies. If he bleeds, she feels it. It is irreversible." Ethan didn't move. "If that's what it takes, I'll do it." Lariah turned to him quickly. "No, you can't. You don't understand what you're offering." He met her eyes calmly. "I do. You've suffered enough." The priest nodded slowly. "Then kneel, both of you." They moved to the center of the floor. The old man drew a circle around them using glowing dust that shimmered in the air. He began to chant in the old language, the sound low and heavy. The candles flickered, their flames rising higher. Lariah felt her heartbeat match the rhythm of the priest's words. The red mark on her wrist blazed with fierce light. She gasped as the energy surged through her veins. Ethan reached out and took her hand. Their fingers intertwined. "Don't let go," she whispered. "I won't," he said. The air grew hot. The walls trembled. The priest raised his hands, his voice echoing like thunder. "By the bond of life and the law of will, one soul replaces another. The chain that binds shall be undone." A beam of red light burst from Lariah's wrist, twisting into the air like fire. It struck Ethan's chest, searing his skin. He gritted his teeth but refused to let go. The mark broke apart, scattering into sparks that floated like dust. When the light faded, Lariah fell forward, breathing hard. Ethan caught her in his arms. The mark was gone, her wrist smooth and free, but a faint red scar now glowed on his chest. "It's done," the priest said softly. "You are bound. Her freedom is your pain." Ethan looked down at her, smiling weakly. "Then it's worth it." Lariah opened her eyes, tears glistening. "You fool," she whispered. Why would you do this? He brushed her hair gently from her face. Because you deserve to live. And maybe I needed a reason to fight again. The priest extinguished the candles one by one. Go, he said. They will feel the break soon. When they realize what you've done, they'll come. Leave this city and never look back. Ethan helped Larea to her feet. She leaned against him, weak but free for the first time in years. The cool night air hit their faces as they stepped outside. Above them, the twin moons shone bright and silent. Larea looked up at the stars and whispered, I never thought I would see them without fear. Ethan smiled. Then let's make sure it stays that way. Far above, in a fortress bathed in crimson light, the clan's leader stared at the fading signal on his control screen. The mark's trace had vanished completely. He turned to his enforcers. Find them, he said coldly. The bond has changed, but it can still be broken. The hunt would continue, but now, for the first time, Larea wasn't running as a slave. She was running as someone free, and beside her walked the human who gave her that freedom, no matter the cost. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, painting the broken city in shades of gold and red. Ethan and Larea walked along the narrow ridge outside the city walls, where the wind was cold and sharp. The world felt quiet after the storm that had chased them for days. Smoke still rose from the streets behind them, the final sign of the battle they left behind. But for now they were alive. Leraya's wrist no longer glowed. The mark was gone, her skin smooth and free. Yet when she looked at Ethan, she could see the faint red scar on his chest glowing faintly through his torn shirt. Every step he took seemed heavier, his breathing slower. You're hurt, she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. I've been worse. You shouldn't lie, she whispered. The bond took something from you. He didn't answer. He kept walking, his eyes fixed on the mountains in the distance. The priest had told them about a safe haven beyond the ridge, a place where neither clan law nor human rule reached. They had to reach it before the enforcers found their trail again. The wind carried the faint sound of engines. Larea looked back and saw lights flickering in the sky. Drones. She grabbed Ethan's arm. They're coming. Ethan nodded. We'll move faster. They ran through the ruins of an old highway. The ground was cracked, the metal beneath glowing faintly from ancient power lines. The sound of engines grew louder. Leraya's heart raced. She knew the clan wouldn't stop. They would rather destroy her than let her live free. When they reached a narrow gorge, Ethan stopped. We can't outrun them, he said. We'll make a stand here. Larea shook her head. No, you've done enough. You've given me freedom. I won't let you die for me, he smiled. It's too late to argue. Before she could respond, the sky split open with light. A troop ship descended, dust swirling around them. The enforcers stepped out, black armor shining in the dawn. The leader's voice boomed through a speaker. Larea of the Varen clan, you are property of the High House. Return and the human will be spared. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. She belongs to no one. The enforcers raised their weapons. Leraya's hands trembled. She could feel the bond between them pulsing, their heartbeats sinking. The pain that struck Ethan would strike her too, and the pain she felt would echo in him. The first shot came like lightning. Ethan pulled her down, the beam grazing his shoulder. She felt the burn at the same spot on her body and gasped. He turned, firing back with a plasma pistol he had stolen. The energy hit one of the enforcers square in the chest, knocking him down. Leraya's vision blurred. Every hit he took rippled through her. She cried out, trying to stand, but her legs felt weak. The leader marched forward, his weapon glowing bright red. You cannot break a bond made by our blood, he said. Ethan raised his pistol again, blood dripping from his hand. Then you'll have to break me! He fired again and again, each shot fueled by sheer will. The priest's words echoed in his mind, her freedom is your pain. He didn't care. If this was the price, he'd pay it. The leader raised his arm, ready to strike, but suddenly the ground beneath them trembled. Lyria shouted a word in her native tongue and a surge of blue energy burst from her hands. It wasn't power from the mark anymore. It came from within, the bond amplifying both their strength. The blast sent the enforcers flying, their armor cracking under the force. When the light faded, only the two of them stood. The ship above them sparked and fell from the sky, crashing into the desert beyond the ridge. Smoke rose into the morning air. Ethan fell to one knee, breathing hard. Lariah caught him before he could fall completely. "Ethan," she whispered, "stay with me." He smiled weakly. "You're free now. That's all that matters." Tears filled her golden eyes. "You fool. We're bound. If you die, I die." He laughed softly. "Then I guess we'll have to live." She held him tightly, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Slowly, the red glow on his chest began to fade. The bond had balanced. They were no longer master and slave, savior and saved. They were equal, two lives intertwined. By the time the suns were fully up, the sky was clear again. The enforcers were gone and the wind carried only silence. Lariah looked toward the mountains. "We can start again there," she said. "No more running." Ethan nodded, his voice soft. "A new world sounds good." They walked side by side through the golden light, their shadows stretching long behind them. The city that once chained her was far away now, just a memory. The story of the human who bought a widow and set her free would spread across the stars. But to them, it wasn't about legend or rebellion. It was about two lost souls who found something greater than law, the courage to love in a universe built on fear. As they disappeared beyond the ridge, the wind carried the faint echo of their laughter, the sound of two people who had finally broken their chains.